The sandals, the breeze, and that one misplaced satchel. You wake to the soft hush of a dawn breeze and a suspicious absence of sandals. Not just any sandals, mind you, your sandals, winged ones, custom-fitted by Hephaestus, the kind that leave glittering vapor trails and make you look heroic even while tripping over a fig branch. You are Hermes, messenger of the gods, patron of travelers, merchants, and people who borrow things indefinitely. Also, unofficial deity of misplacing your most important accessories the moment you need them. The marble floor is cool under your bare feet. Outside, Mount Olympus hums like a dozing harp. Apollo is still asleep, probably, and Artemis has gone hunting with a look that says, "Do not follow." Perfect time to sneak off, you think. Except for the missing sandals. You search your chambers. Nothing. Not under the bed carved from moonlight. Not beside the scroll shelf labeled "Messages I definitely delivered on time." Not even behind the laurel leaf mirror which once ate an entire cloak of invisibility for reasons no one understands. Just as panic begins to flutter in your divine chest, a faint giggle echoes from the corridor. A nymph, possibly Iris, possibly bored. You step out, barefoot, robe slightly askew, dignity wobbling, and there, perched on the balustrade, is a satchel. Your satchel, but no sandals. And tied to the satchel is a note. If you want your shoes, learn to walk. You sigh. This is going to be one of those mythic mornings. A soft breeze ruffles your hair like it's trying not to laugh. You probably won't make it through this myth without some sandals in security, but you will glide gently through the tale. So take a breath, relax your shoulders, maybe slip off your own shoes while we start this slightly absurd, mildly divine journey. And if you're listening in bed, do comment where from and your local time. Hermes likes knowing where his modern messages land. Now let's ease into tonight's story. A God Walks Barefoot, and the Olympian Lost and Found. The tiles are cold and slightly judgmental as you walk, down corridors of polished pearl, past frescoes of battles you don't remember winning, and statues of gods who definitely posed too long. You try to glide with grace, but without your sandals, your usual quiet swish has become a faint but persistent flop-flop. You are a barefoot god, which is apparently a whole different kind of status. A satyr bows awkwardly as you pass. "Nice toes, Lord Hermes." You nod, because what else can you do? Your destination is the one place on Olympus where all things inexplicably missing eventually reappear. The divine repository of misplaced objects, a cavernous room just behind Athena's armor closet and conveniently near Dionysus's wine cellar. No one admits to using it. Everyone does. It's run by Clio's lesser-known cousin, Tidala, goddess of minor retrievals and unappreciated labeling systems. She wears scrolls in her hair and smells faintly of cedar and smugness. When you arrive, she's sipping something steamy and alphabetizing a shelf of mismatched laurel crowns. "Hermes," she says without looking up, "you've lost something again." You attempt charm. "I prefer to think the sandals have temporarily changed custodians." She doesn't laugh. She waves you toward the central table, which is already piled with divine detritus, one thunderbolt earring, a half-burned love note, possibly from Aphrodite, possibly to herself, a flute with bite marks, and a marble bust of Hades wearing a paper party hat.
But no sandals. You groan theatrically. Tadela finally looks up. "Try the wind shelf," she mutters. "Sometimes lost things drift sideways." The wind shelf is a series of invisible pockets suspended midair, accessible only by reaching out and hoping you don't grab a curse instead. You stretch your hand in. Dust. A walnut. A sandal? Nope, just a very judgmental slipper. Still barefoot, still grounded. Historians, if any dared archive the Olympian closet system, would debate whether the gods truly lost items or whether Olympian objects simply grew tired and wandered off. As for your sandals, they're not here. But the note from earlier has mysteriously rewritten itself. You can fly without them. You just forgot how. You frown. Somewhere, a lyre plucks itself. You begin to suspect your sandals are teaching you a lesson.
A visit to Hephaestus and the case of the wandering wing buckles. Olympus is vast, but when you're barefoot, it feels even vaster. The marble corridors stretch like polite mazes. Mosaics glance down at you, unsure whether to admire or snicker. You catch sight of yourself in a gilded vase and realize you've begun walking with the exaggerated care of someone who's stepped on one too many ambrosia crumbs. You're headed to the forge, because when all else fails, when divine sandals vanish, notes taunt, and the lost and found only offers walnuts, you go to the one god who built the shoes in the first place, Hephaestus, god of fire, hammerer of bronze, artisan of impossibly over-engineered objects, and, occasionally, a bit of a troll. You arrive to the sound of metal striking metal, a rhythmic clang like the heartbeat of a mountain. Smoke curls from vents in the walls. Gears click and whir. It smells like oil, thunder, and just a hint of grilled mushrooms. Hephaestus looks up from his workbench, goggles askew. "You're not wearing them," he says dryly. "They're vacationing," you reply. He snorts, motions you over. On the bench are blueprints. Sandal schematics more detailed than siege engines. Tiny gears, feather springs, adjustable heel straps for flight comfort. A cup of bolts labeled emotions unsorted. He explains, they were designed to respond to you, to your sense of direction, your intention. "So they sensed me and left," you mutter. He shrugs. "You've been gliding on instinct for centuries. Maybe they got bored." You examine a prototype. It flutters in your hand like a moth. This one's made of bronze and moon thread, built for graceful emergency exits. Hephaestus offers it as a temporary replacement. "Won't fly straight," he warns. "It's calibrated for someone more symmetrical." You thank him. He grunts. As you leave, he calls out, "Try the Muse Library. They remember things even the gods forget." You sigh. More walking, more barefoot philosophy. Historians, at least the mortal ones who dreamed too vividly, might argue that Hephaestus's creations weren't just tools, but tests. Sandals that required not just feet, but direction. And lately,
you're not entirely sure where you're going. The scroll in your satchel rustles. The note now reads, "Not every message needs wings." You roll your eyes. The sandals are absolutely teaching you a lesson.
The Library of the Muses and the Card Catalog of Regret. You've always liked libraries, even the Olympian ones, which occasionally rearrange themselves without warning and may or may not try to file you under miscellaneous winged things. The Library of the Muses is carved into the clouds behind Apollo's music hall. It doesn't appear on any maps, not because it's hidden, but because the Muses keep misplacing their cartographers. You approach barefoot, scroll satchel slung low, and a slightly malfunctioning sandal prototype fluttering at your side like an insecure moth. The doorway reads, "Speak, friend," or "Hum a lullaby." You hum. Just barely. The door sighs open like an old bard waking from a nap. Inside, it's quiet. Not the cold hush of silence, but the warm, quilted kind, like old parchment and remembered lullabies. Tall shelves curve like ivy-covered columns. Scrolls snore softly in their cubbies. A book of odes sighs dramatically every few minutes, clearly underread. Calliope appears from behind a rack of glowing lyres. She's wearing a robe made entirely of footnotes. "Hermes," she says. "Missing something?" You're not sure if she means the sandals or your dignity. Either way, yes. She leads you to a room labeled "Winged Things and Their Wandering Phases." There are scrolls here about swans that flew to the moon, sparrows that remembered secrets, and Sandals, yours, apparently, who once took a detour through a mortal bakery because they smelled something nostalgic. "Memory, dear messenger," Calliope murmurs, "is sometimes more reliable than maps." She hands you a scroll. It's old, older than most myths. You unroll it slowly. Inside, not instructions, not directions, but a drawing. A child's sketch, crude but heartfelt. It's you, flying, laughing, holding a satchel twice your size. You blink. "A mortal drew it," she explains. "Believed in you so hard, the sandals remembered." Historians still debate whether divine tools possess memory or just a flair for the dramatic. You thank her. "Where should I go now?" you ask. Calliope smiles. "Where you last felt needed." The scroll in your bag rustles again. Now it reads, "You were always more than your shoes," which would be touching if it weren't written in suspiciously smug handwriting. You head out, one foot bare, one fluttering awkwardly. The clouds part, and somewhere below, the mortal world yawns awake. A mortal village and a very surprised farmer. The clouds thin beneath your feet, not metaphorically, literally. Olympian airways are unpredictable, and the prototype sandal on your left foot is doing its best impression of a nervous hummingbird. The other foot? Bare, chilly, and now mildly judgmental of the rest of you. You're descending. Slowly, gracefully-ish, like a soap bubble that forgot which direction was down. Below, the mortal world sprawls in soft greens and cozy browns. A valley, a river, a small village with crooked rooftops and laundry lines fluttering like banners of low-stakes diplomacy. You land in a haystack, with considerable dignity. A nearby goat screams. A farmer drops his rake, so where a rooster forgets its job and simply lies down in surrender. You emerge, brushing off straw, scroll satchel intact, sandal prototype flapping like a lazy bat. The farmer blinks. You, fell from the sky. Technically, you say, I arrived. He doesn't correct you. Probably wise. This village isn't on any of your maps, which is odd. Hermes usually knows every inn, shrine, and questionable roadside soup stand from Athens to the Outer Isles. Still, the air is kind here. The people look tired in a gentle way, and no one is currently offering you a sacrifice, which is refreshing. A child runs past chasing a wooden hoop, stops, stares at your sandal. Why's your shoe buzzing? You pause. It's, a long story. The child nods gravely, as if you have revealed a fundamental truth of the universe. In the town square, a group of elders are gathered beneath an olive tree, sipping something brewed and highly philosophical. They wave you over like you're a regular. One offers a clay cup without asking your name. You sit, breathe. The scroll in your satchel shifts slightly. You open it. Now it reads, "You are always meant to deliver something here." But it doesn't say what. Historians, especially the sleepy kind, sometimes suggest that gods like Hermes didn't just carry messages. They were the message. You close your eyes, just for a moment. The breeze carries the scent of time, bread, and a story not yet finished. Somewhere nearby, your sandals are still hiding. But here, now, barefoot and buzzing, you feel strangely whole. The village square is quiet, in the way morning libraries are, full of activity disguised as peace. You're seated on a low stone bench, drinking from a cup that may or may not contain fermented olives. The villagers go about their routines like sleepy clockwork, sweeping steps, scattering feed, humming tunes that seem to have only one note. There's a bakery. Of course there is. The kind with bread so fresh the loaves look like they were just voted into office. You're drawn in by the scent, warm air and flour and something faintly divine. Inside, an old woman is placing round loaves on a wooden board. She glances up, blinks once, and nods as if she's been expecting you for exactly 11 years. "You've lost something." You nod. "Also, possibly found something, but I'm not sure what it is yet." She slides a loaf into your satchel. "That'll help." You look around the bakery. The walls are lined with odd objects, feathers, shoe buckles, a scroll sealed with wax shaped like a snail. On one shelf, a single sandal. Not yours, but close. It's tiny, child-sized, with one golden wing carved in its sole. You ask about it. "Left here," she says, "by someone in a hurry who still had time to say thank you." There's a silence. "This village," she continues, "once had a name, long ago, but it fell out of use." Why? "Because the bread became more important." You're not sure if that's poetic or literal. Possibly both. She gives you another loaf. You leave the bakery full-handed, if not quite full-footed. The scroll in your satchel shifts again. You unroll it, and this time, there's no message. Just a tiny ink sketch of a loaf of bread with wings. Historians have nothing to say about this. None of the scrolls mention it. But if you asked a grandmother in a mountain village with no name, she'd tell you, "The gods visited once. We gave them bread. They never quite left." You sit beneath the olive tree again. The wind is warm. Parsnip the horse is not here. You haven't summoned him. And for now, you don't need to. The map with no ink and the message you weren't supposed to deliver. Later that afternoon, when the sun turns to gold-dusted honey and shadows stretch like sleepy cats, someone taps you on the shoulder. It's the child from earlier, the one with the hoop and the suspicious wisdom of someone recently reincarnated from something mythological like a tortoise or a lyre. They hand you something, a scroll.
unlabeled. No wax seal, just a quiet, unassuming parchment with a soft crease and the scent of rosemary. Found it near the well, they say. It didn't want to be seen, because, of course, some messages hide until they're ready. You open it. There's no text, no symbols, just an ever-shifting shimmer across the page, like light on water. If you tilt it just right, faint lines appear, paths maybe. One loops into a spiral, another ends in a sketch of what could be a sandal or a teacup. The scroll folds itself before you can fully process it. You tuck it into your satchel. It hums softly, the way a cat might if it were disguised as stationery. You take a walk. The village continues its strange, slow dance, goats being led on walks by chickens, someone playing a harp with a feather, a woman painting clouds on her front door, just in case. You pass the edge of the olive grove. There's a stone marker with an engraving so faded it looks like a memory trying to remain polite. You touch it. It's warm. The scroll stirs. You glance down, and the invisible map suddenly draws a line right to where you're standing. The line glows for a moment, then fades. Historians still debate whether messages like this were divine instinct or divine mischief, whether Hermes ever truly delivered what he was supposed to or merely what was needed. Back at the square, a man in a dusty green robe is asking for directions. His sandals look familiar, winged, slightly scuffed, one fluttering as if recognizing you. You approach slowly. "Are you missing something?" you ask. He shakes his head. "No, I think I'm returning something." And from his satchel, he pulls your sandals. At least, you think they're yours. They shimmer slightly. One wing has a new curl, like it's learned a joke since you last wore it. He hands them to you with a smile, then turns and walks away, leaving only a faint scent of parchment and time. You slip them on. They don't lift you yet, but they feel ready. The scroll in your bag finally speaks. This time, it says, "The message was never in the scroll. It was you." You exhale. It's probably time to go. But not just yet. Take off with intent, and the one-eyed owl who knew your schedule. The sandals fit again. That's the first miracle. They mold to your feet like they returned from a long holiday, slightly more independent, slightly wiser. The straps clasp with a whump of recognition, and the wings flutter, not eager, not dramatic, just present, like they're waiting for your cue. You rise, just a little, half a foot above the ground, hovering, wobbling, dignified as a floating bread roll. The villagers barely notice. They're used to strange departures. Every few years, someone floats off mid-errand and returns with a better story and slightly weirder shoes. You give a small bow to the baker, the child, the olive tree. They nod. Then you fly, softly. No grand swoop, just a rising, like steam from a warm mug. The wind gathers around your ankles like a quiet laugh. Upward, past the crooked roofs, past the well where messages pretend to drown, past the goat who now wears a laurel crown. Unclear why, but it suits him. The clouds part obligingly, and you're in the sky again. It feels like coming back to a room you forgot you loved. Not far above, perched on a ribbon of cloud shaped exactly like a bench, is an owl. One eye, wide-brimmed hat. Probably a demigod, possibly a librarian. "Took you long enough," the owl says. "I was delayed by metaphor." It nods. Understandable. The owl gestures with one wingtip to a scroll at its side. You take it. The seal is made of beeswax and patience. The label reads, "Do not open until halfway through forgetting." You raise an eyebrow. Cryptic. The owl shrugs. Mythic standard. Historians occasionally mention Hermes consulting oracular birds, but never confirm their preferred cloud chairs or passive-aggressive delivery habits. You tuck the scroll away. The wind shifts. A current lifts you higher. The sandals feel stronger now. Not just objects, but participants. They seem to anticipate turns before you make them, like old dance partners reunited after a long intermission. Far below, the village vanishes into patchwork. You are officially airborne. But strangely, not quite in a hurry.
The station in the sky that only exists if you're late. Somewhere between altitude and memory, a building appears. Not abruptly, it just becomes visible. A floating station, a post along the sky route, constructed from marble, cedar, and the architectural optimism of someone who clearly thought clouds were stable real estate. Columns drift slightly, steps move on their own, correcting for any altitude inconsistencies. A weather vane shaped like a thunderbolt spins lazily in the breeze. There is no door, because, of course, anyone who arrives here can fly. You land gently on the front platform, the sandals twitch in satisfaction. A sign dangles from a ribbon of mist. "Welcome to Zephyrus Station. Delays encouraged. Time is not a real thing." Inside, it smells like old scrolls and honeysuckle. A nymph with wind-blown hair and an ink-stained tunic sits behind the front desk, chewing what appears to be a feather quill. "You're Hermes," she says, without looking up. "Or a really convincing imitation." You nod. "Depends who's asking." She says, "I'm Brisa, temporary clerk, part-time cloud sculptor." She pushes a parchment across the counter. It's a delivery receipt. "From you? You didn't write it." "It's dated for 3 days ago, signed in your handwriting, and indicates a parcel delivered to the place that isn't a place, to the one who won't remember." You blink. "Did I do that?" Brisa shrugs. "Time loops weird up here." The scroll in your satchel stirs. Not the invisible one. This is the other one, the one you received from the owl. You open it, against instructions. Inside, just 4 words. You were already here. And now you remember. You have been here. On another flight, another errand. Long ago, or maybe not yet. You dropped something off. A message, a shoe, a memory. You glance around. On a shelf behind the desk, a single sandal, identical to yours, missing only a buckle, labeled loaned, returned, repeating. Brisa notices your expression. She says, "You fly in sometimes, don't always remember, but you're always polite." The air hums. You sit for a moment on a bench made of mist thread. Someone's carved names into it. Yours is there, once in Greek, once in a doodle of a winged foot with a smiley face. Historians never mention Zephyrus Station, which makes sense. Only couriers remember it, and only when they're running late. You rise. The sandals feel lighter. A wind current opens like a path. Time to go. Where? No idea. But the sky seems to know. A brief detour through a whispering forest that isn't technically real. You're flying low now, skimming just above the cloud line, where the sun dapples everything like a lazy painter brushing gold across mist. The wind is playful, nudging you left, then right, then pretending not to be involved at all. The sandals hum beneath your feet, content, alert, slightly smug. And then, as the horizon ripples like warmed silk, a forest appears, floating. Impossible, obviously, but there it is, trees growing from nothing, suspended on invisible roots, their branches gently swaying in a wind they generate themselves. You hesitate. Then, you glide in. The forest accepts you without ceremony. Leaves the size of dinner plates brush your shoulders, vines hum faint lullabies. Every so often, a fruit falls gently and hovers in midair, reconsidering gravity. It's not on any map, which is, in your experience, the best kind of place. You land on a mossy patch of sky. Beneath one tree, a small creature snoozes in a nest of old scrolls and sandal straps. It looks like a squirrel, if a squirrel had antlers, glasses, and an unhealthy relationship with stationery. It wakes as you approach. Oh, you again. You squint. Have we met? Not yet, but also yes. The creature yawns, stretches, and hands you a bundle of parchment. Messages you forgot to deliver. They wandered back here. You sort through them. One is addressed to yourself. Another is just a drawing of a sandal high-fiving a loaf of bread. The last? Blank. The creature grins. That one's for improvising. You sit on a branch that politely bends to hold you. The sandals twitch. Do they always come here? You ask. The creature shrugs. Only when they're tired of being useful. You nod. Fair. Historians would scoff at this place. Trees growing from air, creatures who dream in delivery routes, sandals with emotional fatigue. But you're starting to think most of the world happens between recorded moments. The scroll in your satchel shuffles again. Another line appears. Don't forget to rest between flights. You lean back. The forest whispers around you, not words, just soft reminders that not all motion is progress. Sometimes floating is enough. You exhale and stay just a little longer. Where the wind keeps secrets and the clouds take attendance. When you finally lift off from the whispering forest, it feels like leaving a daydream inside another daydream. You rise slowly, the trees waving, not with leaves but with intentions. The antlered scroll squirrel, a phrase you never thought you'd have to take seriously, offers a half salute with a tiny inkwell before curling back into its bed of undelivered oaths. Back in the open sky, the air is cooler, higher, a little crisper around the edges. You pass through a layer of mist shaped like an accidental question mark. And then you see them, cloud markers. They're faint, barely perceptible unless you're looking at the corners of the sky. Wispy bands, arranged in repeating patterns, lines, dots, the occasional spiral. You remember them now. Navigation glyphs, wind signs, a system only you and a few thousand-year-old moths still understand. They're taking attendance. You land gently on a cumulus plateau shaped like an open scroll. It pulses faintly with ink-colored light. As your feet touch down, the sandals give a little flutter, half announcement, half stretch.
A breeze rolls in, speaking in small bursts. Not with words, more like moods. Hesitation, excitement, a faint whiff of citrus and confusion. Hermes reporting, you say aloud. The clouds acknowledge you. One curls into a check mark, another into a sleepy spiral. A parchment lifts itself from a column of fog. It drifts toward you like a well-trained pigeon with an agenda. You open it. It's your own handwriting again. Delivery confirmed. Recipient, you. Contents, breath, pause, absurdity, sky. You nod. Sounds about right. The sandals adjust on your feet like they're pleased. Historians would be annoyed. They'd ask for specifics, dates, names, coordinates. But the clouds don't do footnotes. They swirl once more, forming a brief shape that could be a wing or a spoon or a reminder. Then the air clears and the wind nudges you gently onward. Time to go, you ask? The breeze answers by slipping beneath your arms, lifting you just slightly forward. No destination, just direction. You let go and fly.
A very small island devoted entirely to lost things and one spoon. After hours, or maybe days, depending on which clock you're not using, you spot a shimmer on the horizon. It's not water, not quite land, just presence. A little island floats in the middle of nothing, tidy as a desk drawer. It has a single tree, one stone bench, and a sign that says quite plainly, "Lost, but not gone." You land. The sandals whisper against the mossy ground. The air here feels like an unfinished sentence. Scattered all around the island are objects. A child's sandal with a feather glued to the heel, an amphora with no handles, a spoon with a name scratched into its back, Thelonious. You feel like you've stumbled into a museum curated by sentimentality and mild forgetfulness. A voice speaks from the tree's shadow. Looking for something, or just feeling nostalgic? You turn. A figure sits cross-legged beneath the branches, robed in twilight, hair full of autumn leaves. Definitely myth-adjacent, possibly a retired memory. Neither, you say. Or maybe both. They nod, as if this is the only correct answer. You sit beside them. They hand you a small object wrapped in linen. You open it. It's your old satchel clasp, the one you lost centuries ago during that ill-fated message run through a sandstorm of particularly rude Sphinx riddles. We keep the things you're not ready to let go of, they explain, and return them when you're not looking. Is that why the sandals left? Partly. They remembered something you forgot. The tree rustles above you. Its leaves are shaped like old ticket stubs. The figure hands you a small scroll, no seal, just a single line. You are allowed to misplace things, even yourself. You don't ask who wrote it. You already know. Historians never write about this island, because no one remembers landing here. They just take off slightly lighter than they arrived. You rise. The sandals don't rush. They lift, gently, respectfully. The figure fades behind you, becoming shadow again. You take a deep breath, and something unspoken exhales with you. The Sky Archive, where winds are filed alphabetically. You're flying again, though flying feels too dramatic for what's really happening. You're gliding, meandering, loafing in the air, like a dandelion seed with opinions. The sandals don't need to flap much now. They seem to understand the route by feel. Swooping occasionally to dodge migrating birds, angling upward just enough to pass over a sulky cloud shaped suspiciously like an amphora. And then you see it. The Sky Archive. Not a building, not exactly. It's a collection of floating platforms stacked like bookcases, suspended by breeze and bureaucracy. Sheets of parchment flap gently in the air, tethered by the thinnest threads of storm silk. Wind chimes, shaped like punctuation marks, dangle from invisible ceilings. You land softly on a circular dais labeled Reception. Drift slowly in. A figure waits. She's tall, wrapped in layers of cloud-stitched robes, her hair an updo of draft patterns and forgotten lullabies. Hermes, back again. Have I been here? Yes, and also not yet. Classic archive answer. She hands you a scroll. It opens itself. Inside, a list. Not messages, winds, labeled meticulously. Southern murmuring gust, loaned to oracle, returned unraveled. Northeastern dramatic squall, checked out by Poseidon, never returned. Left side window draft, unassigned but highly opinionated. You raise an eyebrow. Why file the winds? Because they carry more than there. The sandals twitch, agreeing. She continues. Some winds remember what they whispered. Others forget and loop eternally. She pauses. You're here to return one. You frown. Check your satchel. At the bottom, a soft, silvery thread of air, tied like a ribbon. Light, barely there. The wind you borrowed on your way to deliver a message long ago. You hand it over. It sighs, yes, sighs, and floats into its designated file, curling up like a cat that's been out too long. You always bring them back, she says, smiling. Eventually, you reply. Historians never cite the Sky Archive. It's too unreliable for footnotes and too whimsical for bibliographies. But you file it away in your mind, gently. As you lift off, the archive waves, not the woman, not the building, but the place itself, like a library that knows it'll see you again. The delivery that wasn't supposed to be delivered. The sky softens. You've flown so far now, the sun doesn't know which direction it's supposed to set in. The clouds hang lower, like lazy curtains, their edges glowing with a kind of gentle approval. Ahead, a hill rises, not floating this time, but planted firmly in the world below. It's a modest bump of earth, crowned by a lone structure, a round, windowless house made of river stones and echoes. You feel it before you land. That tug. Something in your satchel shifts, the way a memory stirs just before sleep pulls it back under. The sandals bring you down lightly. You barely touch the grass. The door to the house opens before you knock.
A woman stands there. Ordinary. Not divine, not draped in mist or crowned in starlight. She wears a robe patched with old maps, each one leading somewhere no longer on any route. "Took you long enough," she says, smiling. "I got sidetracked. Naturally." You follow her inside. The house is small, cozy, lit by floating lamps shaped like moths. A kettle sings to itself in a minor key. She gestures to a chair, and you sit. "So," you say, "I have a delivery?" She nods. "Something you picked up long ago, maybe by accident." You open the satchel. There, at the very bottom, is a scroll so small and tightly wound it looks more like a spool of golden thread. You didn't know it was there. The seal bears no symbol, just a single fingerprint. Hers. You hand it to her. She doesn't open it. "I already know what it says." You pause. "Then why have me bring it?" "Because sometimes the message isn't what's written. It's that it was delivered at all." Outside, a breeze carries the scent of time and old rain. You exhale. "I've been flying a long time." "And now?" You smile. "Now, I think I'm almost done." Historians never document this house. They think Hermes always ran forward, never sat still. But here, now, with a teacup in your hand and a scroll finally delivered, you realize something. This journey was never about the sandals.
The return path you drew without realizing. You don't leave the house immediately. The woman pours tea, something herbal and familiar, with a hint of orange peel and ancient wisdom. You sip in silence, the steam curling into words you don't need to read. The sandals sit quietly beside the door, not pulsing, not urging, just resting, like they finally trust you to know when it's time. "So, where do I go next?" you ask. The woman doesn't answer right away. She just hums softly, the way cliffs might hum when the sea is far away, but still remembered. Then, at last, you've already drawn the path, not with ink, with movement. You blink. It sounds like nonsense, but your mind reaches back, through forests in the air, stations of lost things, maps with no ink, clouds that knew your name. You have been drawing a path, looping, meandering, spiraling gently toward this final stop. Not to end the journey, but to rest within it. The sandals stir. They understand. You walk outside, barefoot now, toes pressed to the grass. The earth feels warm, familiar. The sky above doesn't call to you. Not yet. You sit on the stone step, watch a cloud shaped like a sandal drift lazily by. And that's when you notice. The scroll that was handed back to you, blank, remember, now has a faint mark, a single line, a horizon, and beneath it, one winged footprint. Yours. You smile. Historians will never record this. They'll write about the fleet-footed god, the trickster courier, the divine messenger of Olympus. But they'll miss the nap you took beneath the olive tree, the detour through a library made of wind, the bread gifted to you by a village that forgot its name but not its recipes. They'll never know you once left a sandal behind on purpose, just to see if anyone would remember to return it. You rise slowly.
The sandals wait, patient and light. And as you slide them on, you hear not the rush of air, but the hush of everything you've delivered and everything you've let go. You take a breath, and then another, and then nothing more is needed.
Wind down, fade to sleep. Now let the clouds curl closer. Let the breeze soften into stillness. No errands left, no scrolls, no leashes on crayfish. Only the long, gentle exhale of a sky that's proud of you for resting. Your sandals are beside the bed now. Figuratively or not, your satchel is empty. Your shoulders are lighter. The wind no longer whispers. It simply watches as you drift and drift and drift. Sleep well, courier. You've already arrived.